In this past 3 months, I think I've hung out with more people and been invited to more things than I ever did in like our last 3, 4, 5 years in America.
Welcome back to I Left America, the podcast that inspires us to be brave and venture beyond. 7 years ago, I left America for New Zealand, and it was the best decision an American could make. But don't take my word for it. We'll be talking to other Americans who left and learning about their experiences. Today, we're talking to Bruce Hamilton. After a few false starts, Bruce managed to move his family from San Francisco to Spain. We'll find out how hard it really is to move overseas, get that visa, find places that make life convenient, and maybe even how to find a few friends. Let's hear that story. Hi, Bruce. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, please introduce yourself.
Sounds good. So I'm Bruce Hamilton. I'm an American who moved to Spain in early 2025. I'm not doing much, but I started a YouTube channel just because I'm not working, so I had time to mess around and do some fun stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
That's good too. I've been watching it. It's pretty good.
Thank you.
So tell us, you moved from California to Spain with your family. How long have you been away now?
So coming up on 3 months already. Late January, early February, kind of the month changed while we're in the air. So yeah, in early May will be 3 months.
Did you travel around a bit before you settled in Spain?
No, we did go to Madrid first for a few days before we came up to northern Spain where we ended up.
Do you have any relatives in Spain?
Not really. We have a couple friends we met while we were living in California that are in Bilbao. Other than that, we had no friends in Spain.
When was the moment you realized that this was something you fully intended to do?
I'm not sure if there was a specific time, but I think there was maybe five events. One of them was visiting Europe for the first time and coming back to America, and we were like, wow, I think a lot of Americans have this. I want to move there one day. And then it started getting more realistic, like maybe the January 6th violent attack on our US Capitol was kind of like, oh wow, maybe it's time to really work towards this. And then Roe versus Wade being overturned, which took away the federal rights to abortion in the USA. That was another one. We were pregnant with a girl. So it was like another kick in the butt, I would say. And then I think Trump, a convicted rapist and felon, being nominated for president again in 2022. That was kind of like the nail in the coffin. Once that happened, we were all in. We said, no matter how much money we lose, you know, things we sell, relationships we not burn, but if you're living close to your parents and you move across the world, people are going to be sad. So we kind of knew what was going to happen, but we decided it was best for us and our family, especially our little girl. So yeah, I think a buildup of events.
Wow, that's a lot of turning points. And then, yeah, I could see how it just gets more and more serious. What were some of the
Exactly.
positive things you were looking forward to moving overseas for, like adventure experiences, healthcare?
Yeah, those are all, life is nuanced, right? So I can't really say one word. It was a lot of things. I think the biggest things were simple enough, like a walkable lifestyle was probably number one. Also an affordable lifestyle. We're from San Francisco Bay Area, so we did have a walkable lifestyle in general, but everywhere we wanted to live with at least a two-bedroom apartment was just so ridiculously expensive. I was going to have to work until age 65 to retire. We weren't going to be able to buy anything. And I was even getting paid more than probably the average as an electrical engineer. But I mean, rents for over 4,000 US dollars for two-bedroom apartments. In most areas, I could make it to work. So I think a combination of like a walkable lifestyle, healthy, we wanted good quality produce, which in America it's pretty tough to find. You have to go to Whole Foods or something. Then you're paying. They call it whole paycheck for a reason. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's a combination of a lot of things, but the top of the list was safe, walkability, price, adventure. Maybe four of those are probably the top ones.
And which countries did you consider once you had that list?
We considered a lot, to be honest, and I think the first time we considered Europe, it was probably 2021, probably around the January 6th, the riots or whatever, violent attack on the Capitol. So at that time, Portugal was kind of like the gold standard for Americans. They had the golden visa for something like $350,000. You could invest in a property. You don't have to buy it all, just down payment, and you'd get residency. And you could do that in Porto and Lisbon at the time. So it was like, wow, I could work remote. I could probably work remote for my firm. I'm already kind of remote. Most of my career is kind of hybrid remote. So I was thinking we could buy a place in Porto and, it'd be cheaper than a place in SF. I could keep working at my firm in SF. It's just perfect. So we started kind of doing that, started moving our money around, talked to a lawyer, I think. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, we're taking that visa away. So I was like, shoot, let's go back to the drawing board. So then we just looked at, I don't know, kind of like using Chat GPT and Google, always saying, what are the best visas for Americans? What's the easiest way? I would look at a list of 20 things. I would, if there was like work program in Russia or something that we're just like, no, we'd cross those off. And then we got down to like, there's usually always like five options we had. Germany was always an enticing one because I don't know, I speak some German. Um, just seems like a good counterpart to America, I would say, a similar culture and values and good salaries and whatnot. So Germany was always like in a top three. France kind of surprised me. My wife was saying, let's move to France, and I was like, we have no French language, but she speaks Spanish, so it's similar. So just like just a hodgepodge of ideas, but mainly it was Western Europe, just because of familiarity. That's like our first trip abroad from the U.S. was Western Europe. So I think, yeah, that was a long answer, but it was like Germany, Spain, France, the Netherlands, English speaking areas. I think New Zealand, places like where you're at, were just a little too far.
It is pretty far. That's great. So Spain made the top of the list at the end of the day, and you moved there three
Yeah,
months ago.
weirdly enough, we weren't even thinking about Spain on the non-lucrative, which we did. I was just looking at the list before this podcast. I had a list of like best options now, and I made a couple of those because, like, in 6 months things would change. Spain was never really the top one. It was usually like three or five. But we were thinking Spain on a digital nomad visa, but my work said no. So we're like, well, what's next? And I didn't think about keeping Spain and just changing visas because I didn't really want to do a retirement visas and not retired and we're just blowing a ton of money. But desperate times come for desperate measures, I would say.
So what kind of visa are you on now?
We're on, it's called non-lucrative, NLV, visa non-lucrativa. So we can't take a job here in Spain.
What's the plan then as far as finding work if you can't work now? Are you using this time to network and find companies or?
That's a great question. I was in my head before we moved, I was gonna say, gonna learn German. I mean, further than A1, A2 level I'm at. Gonna work on my resume and gonna network, like you say. But now that we're here, we're all of a sudden on Spain time, so we're just relaxing more than I expected.
Well, that's
So,
that's a good thing to get a little bit of a chance to relax, and especially with the family. I mean, I think you definitely need that. When you essentially are escaping something, you need that downtime to recover and move on to the next big thing and see what your options are. So, yeah, that's why I was just wondering, what's your strategy for finding work when you eventually do?
I think we're just gonna try and make the 2.5 years here in Spain to get my wife her citizenship application started. And then after that, we might move to another European country for work. I mean, a lot depends on her citizenship. If she gets the Spanish nationality, then I could probably find a job in many countries around here just with my skills. I didn't have enough skills to get a work visa sponsored to, bring me over to Europe from America. But once I could legally work, I think it'll be a little easier. So yeah, the goal is to hold off for as long as we can, live affordably, like no art on the walls. So we're gonna go as long as we can, living frugally, and then hopefully I'll be able to find a job here in Europe, somewhere, maybe Spain, maybe a neighboring country. I'm kind of a DIY guy, so probably incorrectly did it myself because I'm sure if I had a professional, they would have told me some things like hey, you have your 2.5, 3 years of US dollars to live in Europe. You should transfer those to euros in case the dollar crashes or
Yeah.
something like that. No one told me that. So now we had like 90,000 US in a savings account that was earmarked for this 3 years. All of a sudden, that one, and then when we moved, it was 0.98 to 1. It was pretty much parity euro to US dollar. Now it's like 0.86. So just sitting there, I lost like a year of rent in Spain. I should have transferred it.
you can never bet on forex. You'll never know. Yeah, just hold on to it. But yeah, absolutely, that's true. That's something I told my sister actually. Is she was very worried about it, staying in the country, and she wanted to know what her options were. And it was look, even if you go somewhere on a 6 month tourist visa or something, as long as you're out, then you can really kind of relax and start thinking about your options instead of when you're still in, you're panicking a bit, you're desperate. But once you're out, you have that time to kind of think through your options now. And I think that's good. You're doing exactly the right thing. So what did people around you think of when they heard your decision to leave?
Like people like my parents were just like, at first they was like, no, America's great. Why would you want to do this? We have what do you want to do in Europe? And then we finally took them to Europe and they were like, okay, yeah, I could see this. But then when it got closer and we're like, all right, we're actually making a plan, mom and dad, and we're gonna go maybe, this fall or this next year. And then they were like, all of a sudden they're back in like a Visit America kind of like program. They're like, hey, did you know, have you been to Monterey recently? Do you remember how nice Yellowstone was? Should we go to Yosemite again? We have mountains here. What do they have in Europe that we don't have? We have fresh bread. Do you want to go for a drive to this bakery? All of a sudden, they were like, selling me on America again, which is pretty funny.
That's interesting.
But yeah, once they kind of understood that we were doing it, and then it got to more like grief. There, my mom was crying when I saw her, like in the last months. She was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going, even though it was like we're here for 2 months. We actually stayed with them for the last month, like let's just hang out and have fun and go do a bunch of fun stuff, and still just like almost like grief stricken mother. And then like friends and coworkers are just like, oh, that's awesome, yeah, where are you going? Spain? Oh yeah, I love Spain. Yeah, I should do that. And my boss was saying I should do that too. So it kind of varied. My parents were sad, and other people were just like, a lot of my friends are probably left leaning, educated people in the San Francisco area. So they were all kind of understood as soon as I said it. And some people even said, like, oh, I've been thinking about that. What visa did you do? So it ranged.
Yeah, I saw a statistic the other day, something like 42% of Americans are thinking about leaving the country right now. I mean, thinking seriously of it, not just, oh, yeah, maybe
Uh,
someday, but now's the time. Whose idea was it in the first place, or did you just kind of arrive at it mutually?
hmm. I would assume pretty close to mutual, but if it was someone's idea first, I would assume it's mine. I was really into like I started watching YouTube travel maybe 10 years ago, and I just started watching a ton of stuff on YouTube. I was working on one screen, I'd usually be watching YouTube travel on another screen. So at some point, I had watched like Americans in Asia and Europe and Mexico. I was watching a ton of Americans moving abroad. I'm not sure how I even started on that, but just I think I just starting and getting interested in travel. And I had graduated college. I was like, where do I want to go? And I think that's where it started. So I'm sure I started showing my wife some people, and then we were just watching all these YouTube channels over the years. And then as we went from girlfriend to wife, and then we started talking more seriously, and we are like, we should take a huge trip. We honestly, this is not a joke. 2020, spring of 2020, let's quit our jobs. We were both at our firms for 2, maybe 3 years, and we're kind of time for a raise. But as I don't know, maybe it's just an American thing. You don't really get raises when you stay places usually. So I would stay and maybe get, 1% raise, or I'd leave for a 10, 15% raise. That was over my whole career. Anyways, so we were planning this huge trip. We had this travel document. We're like, let's hit these 2 or 3 countries. We'll do 3 months abroad. We'll do our 90-day Schengen visa in Europe. My wife was getting her green card. She was originally from Mexico, came to the USA. She was getting her green card so she could travel abroad again after this huge bureaucratic thing. Anyway, so she got her green card in early March of 2020. We were just booking all of our flights, and all in the same week, COVID pandemic happened. So that all got pushed back. But yeah, we've been just planning on traveling for a long time, and I think the COVID pandemic probably just made us want to travel more because we had literally, I think we had purchased flights, but we paid for non-refundable, luckily. And the COVID news came out right after, so within 24 hours, we already canceled our flights because we didn't know what was going to happen. Long story short, I think it was my plan to move abroad, but we were always trying to travel. Our travel got cut short for so many things. My wife was going through bureaucracy for American citizenship for years, and then the COVID pandemic. So, like, after 5 years of trying to do something, you just really want to do it, right? So then at some point, it was just like, let's just move there. I think after we saw it finally in like 2021, we saw it, and then we're like, yeah, we're moving here for sure.
How have you adapted? How did you find the supermarket that you want to shop at, or find a clothing store, and all the little things that make life normal?
Process was hard, to be honest. In America, you don't really think, I mean, I wouldn't think it would be as hard because there's things like Target that has everything. And I don't know, it's probably the same for foreigners in America. But here in northern Spain, to be specific, it was pretty hard, to be honest. When we're traveling, it's just like you pull up Google Maps, look up whatever pizza, and then we go. Grocery store was probably an easier one because there's Carrefour, there's a French one, there's Mercadona, there's a Spanish one, there's all these grocery stores nearby us, and you pop into each one and you find out, oh, this one has good Mexican ingredients like tortillas, and oh, this one has good whatever. So that was pretty easy. I think the hard thing was furnishing an empty apartment. We only knew of IKEA, and then like local furniture stores were saying it's going to be 3 months. I'm like, 3 months? We need this place furnished in 3 days. But yeah, and it's just like a trial and error thing. I think we sometimes I'd be at the park. I'd actually take Lily to the park because I was like, we need this and this, and it's kind of hard to find. So I'd go to the park and I'd do my best Spanish and be like, where do you buy whatever, name a thing? Where do you buy pots and pans from? We see like a few stores, but locals probably know like the best, like in your area, probably know the best for this and the best for that. So I'd say trial and error, using Google searches, using friends or new friends, and just doing our best day to day.
So it sounds like you're doing pretty well meeting new people there. Have you made new friends?
Yeah, we have been better than I thought. I was telling Liz that it might be partially the YouTube channel. I've got 4 or 5 people reach out to me to offer me to hang out through YouTube. And then Lily, having a toddler at the park helps because they hear us speaking Spanish with a bad accent or English, and they're like so confused and also curious, like, why are you here? Why are you here in this side of town in Logroño with no airport? So then from that, I've probably made 4 or 5 friends. So yeah, I was telling Liz, my wife, that in this past 3 months, I think I've hung out with more people and been invited to more things than I ever did in like our last 3, 4, 5 years in America, where we really had to fight to make friends. And in America, where in at least in California, where we were, where we spoke the language, and I don't know, just even people at work, I would offer people at work to go hang out, and everyone just had their own things, which is fine. So yeah, it's been a little easier than I thought. It might be a Spain thing. It might be us having a kid. It might be YouTube, but it's probably just a combination of those three.
Well, so they say America is such a lonely country. People are generally lonely and don't hang out with each other as much or make new friends as often. But other countries can be much more sociable, especially when you're new and you have that opportunity. So, yeah, that's fantastic.
I could add on to that real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the apartment building we're in now, right below, there's a playground. Like, uh, as soon as you enter the door, you have to like kind of walk by a playground. And pretty much every apartment, maybe not building, but like complex of 2 or 3 buildings or blocks have their own little playgrounds. And so not just for kids, but I mean, if I leave alone to go grocery shopping or something and I come home, there's a bunch of people sitting on the bench like right outside of our building. So even if I didn't have a kid, I feel like I would probably make friends quicker here. Where in America, we lived in Walnut Creek, we lived in San Francisco, we lived in Sacramento. Each one of our buildings didn't really have much community space. It was like a rentable community space where you had to pay or tell them months in advance and then you could rent it for a party. Where here it's just like there's so many benches about, there's so many things to do. Drinking outside here is subsidized, so like beers and wines are 1, 2 euros. So it's just like you said, I think America is just a little lonelier, where in Spain it's kind of like incentivized to get out, hang out with people. And we've only been here in winter, by the way. I'm sure now that the weather is better, I'm sure it's just going to be wild. We're just going to meet a bunch of people and hang out outside a lot. So we're looking forward to that.
That's fantastic. That's so friendly. So,
Hmm.
what do you love most about the new country of Spain?
The outdoor, hang out outside culture, the friendliness. People are very friendly. I think people say like Europeans in general are a little more direct and they don't mind saying like, hey, you're speaking English, like what are you doing here? Like we've gotten that a lot, which in America you might be like, if I said that like, hey, why are you speaking Spanish, what are you doing here? I think they would take it in a bad way, but here it's just, or maybe it's just me here, I'm just like, hey, what's up, and then I come over to their group and we're talking the rest of the evening. So I think like the first thing that sticks out to me is just the friendliness, which we already covered. It's beautiful here. I didn't really expect northern Spain to be this beautiful, but we just walk away from our apartment and it's just like rolling hills and they're green and it still rains here. We're in America. Sorry, we're in our part of California. It's already turning brown and dead because it's so dry. I like that it rains more than I expected. I know southern Spain is a lot drier, but just something I like about northern Spain, I guess. So yeah, like the different landscapes, similar to California, and I'm sure a lot of places like have, dry areas and wet areas and mountains and beach, but Spain definitely lives up to having kind of some of everything.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about them asking where you're from when they hear your language you're speaking or your accent. Even in New Zealand, I've been here for 7 years, and people still constantly ask me, "So, where are you from?" And in the back of my head, it always makes me bristle because in the U.S., obviously, if you say where are you from, it's either racist or somehow exclusionary, and it's almost rude to
Some
ask that question. We're almost trained not to ask that question, and in here it's because they're just so excited. They want to know more about you and your life and your journey, and they hear an accent and they just latch on like, hey, this is going to be a good story. And it's the complete opposite of what I'm used to in the US, and it's kind of nice, but it still bothers me.
I'll jump in real quick. Sometimes I think it is friendly because in the US, our friends in Bilbao are because I heard Spanish and it didn't sound like Mexican Spanish. I was like, hey, where are you guys from? So I think sometimes in America it could be asked nicely, right? As long as someone has the right intentions.
Yeah. One of your videos, you said you gave yourself about a budget of $2,000 a month. How's that working out budget wise for you?
Oh man, that's an embarrassing one. So when I was researching that video, we were kind of not tongue in cheek, but when I was researching the budget for that video, I kind of knew we weren't going to make that, or at least be over, but we weren't sure how much. But the funny thing is, before I released it, I was kind of talking to my wife, and I was like, if we were way over, it'd just be really funny to make a video like a year from now and say, yeah, so we thought we were going to make this, or we thought we were going to spend this, but we ended up spending this. So as you could probably see where this is going, it's horribly off, like exponentially. So in 2 months, the first 2 months, I could just say we spent 20,000 US. And I think that sounds wild, but there are some, it might not be as bad for the whole year because we had to pay a lot of rent up front. I included the apartment security deposit. Um, our only apartment rental options ended up being unfurnished. So that was probably at least 5,000 US dollars there. We took a trip to Italy, which is only 1,000 or so, but yeah, so that budget is completely blown out of the water. Hopefully, the rest of the year we could keep it around 2,000 a month, or else we're going to be going home after this 1 year, and we're not going to make it 2.5 years.
So that was your upfront cost, but then your monthly expenses now that you're settling in should be closer to that budget, you think?
I'm hoping. I'm hoping. We
Yeah.
looked at our finances, and I talked to my wife, and I was like, we got to rein in a little bit, or else I'm going to be going back to real work sooner than later. But it's just like we don't have a pot big enough to make chicken soup. It's like, should we buy it? And it's just like thing after thing after thing, day after day, building a
Yeah.
life from scratch. It's like, do we not have the soup? She wanted the soup, so it's like, all right, go buy. Let's buy the pot. Let's make the soup. And then the next thing is like, I don't know, should we buy this? Should we buy that? And just thing after thing. So hopefully, I'm really hoping, like you said, it slows down and these are all upfront costs.
I know a lot of people moving overseas. It can be very expensive, but then again, if you were to move to another state in the U.S., it's not much different price wise as far as the moving and the upfront costs, like you said, for an apartment deposit and et cetera, et cetera. So when you moved over, you actually got rid of all of your things from your apartments. You just came over with suitcases. That's it.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, we had the discussion a bunch, like, should we package everything and ship it? Looked at that price. I was I was probably never gonna say yes to that option. I think it was just too much worry and stress, and but it ended up being a ton of worry and stress to sell everything and then donate the rest anyway. So who knows? Maybe it would have been better. Now that we have an unfurnished apartment, it would be a different discussion. But we had like 100% set our minds on getting an unfurnished, or sorry, getting a furnished apartment and not needing all
Mm.
the furniture. So so yeah, we slowly. I mean, we started probably a year or two before we moved because we wanted to do this move. So it was like, let's go through the closet this month. Let's get rid of stuff we know we're not using. Well, we were donating stuff to like nieces and nephews, and we slowly did it over 2 years. Probably the last month or two, we really sped up where we found a sofa for free on Craigslist, which is like a secondhand store in America, our website. So we found a free sofa. We got that. And then we sold our pricier sofa because it was bigger and harder to move. We sold that in September and we didn't move until November to temporary accommodations. So that was like, you know, 3+ months ahead of our actual move. We started selling the big ticket items, the car, and everything was so stressful. Like Carvana was like, "Hey, we'll take your car for 8,000 US dollars." And I was like, man, but Kelly Blue Book Valley said 11,000. So I did it myself, but that ended up being months of stress, me taking it to the mechanic to show the secondhand purchase person that it's good. All these things we did were hard on ourselves just to save the money because we didn't have extra money.
Yeah.
Long story short, we sold everything. At the end, we were just giving away boxes of stuff. Like my wife had like our wedding high heels and all of her fancy dress stuff, and it was like we packed three big suitcases, and the stuff that didn't fit, we were just like, let's just get rid of. So yeah, it was hard. It was kind of stressful. It was sad. I'm not really materialistic, so I didn't really care. But I'm more financial based, so it does hurt to like sell a table, lose $600 on it, and then go here and buy a $600 table. That stuff hurt me deep to my core just because of the value we lost. So
So, what are some of the cultural differences you're encountering, and how do you learn how to get around, and anything strange that you've come across so far?
yeah, so the two things that come to mind, I'll hit the easy, quick one first. The dos besos mentality, where you get two kisses on the cheek when you meet someone. So me being an American foreigner, like it's been kind of funny because when I meet people, like I kind of heard about it, I've seen it, etc. But when I'm at the park and talking to like another lady or a mom of a child, and she's like, "Oh, you're from California," or like they see me a second time, she like grabs me and pulls my head in. It's like the first time that happened, I was like, "What is going on?" Like just like just almost in shock. And then after that, and then I don't know, like, what do I do? Like, do I make a kiss noise? I hope she didn't think I was rude because I was just like, whatever. So that's one. The Dos Besos has been kind of interesting, but I think a lot of people just kind of like know I'm an American foreigner and haven't expected me to do it, and hopefully they don't feel bad that I haven't been doing it to people because I don't know what to do. I don't know what's right. No one's taught me and the little details of it. Like, do I grab them and do it? Do I do a kiss? Do I just brush cheeks, or do I actually have to kiss? Who knows? So they probably just think I'm some weird American foreigner, which I am. So rightfully so. And then the other thing that comes to mind is the siesta culture. The siesta culture, another thing, you've heard about it. I've heard about it. The Spanish take siestas. Stuff is closing at 14 or 2 p.m. here. And it's like, we get out, we go do something for an hour, and all of a sudden everything's closing. And we're out, we have the stroller packed, we have our to-do list, and we just have to go home for 3 hours. We totally lose momentum. We go home, no restaurants are open, so we make food. And then it's like, well, we're too full to go out. We wanted to try this new restaurant, and now we're just gonna stay in. And then it's like 6 or 7 p.m. and it's Lily wants to go to the park, so we end up doing that. And then we don't get that one to-do item done. And then we're like, we'll do it tomorrow. I don't work, so tomorrow repeat. There's something about the things closing for 3 hours in the middle of the day, almost everything closing for 3 hours in the middle of the day, just really sets like us as Americans off of our pace, off of our, I'm like, I guess maybe I'm just a morning person, so I want to like get up, do everything. So if I don't go do it in the morning and I wait until like noon to leave the house, it's just things go awry and our plans don't go to plan. And it's been kind of interesting. And like nothing's been a big deal, nothing waiting for tomorrow has been a big deal. But it took us 3 months. We just got internet installed. It took us 3 months. Everything's been tomorrow, mañana mindset, siesta. It's like, you need this before you do this, but we don't want to do this today. Come back tomorrow. Like none of that is like it was in America. Where in America, if I came with money, we would have left with internet back in March. We heard that coming in, but
It sounds like people speak less English than I would have expected. Were you ready for that? My impression of Europeans is usually they speak 5 languages and at least one of them is English. But it sounds like that's not the case where you are.
I think less people here in Logroño have spoken English than I expected. I prepared in a way, not expecting them to speak English, right? Because I didn't want to be here just relying on English. So I was learning Spanish. My wife speaks Spanish. But I would say, I think definitely the older generations here, I'm not sure if it's a Spain thing where they just learn a little bit less English or what, but we go to like some grocery stores and we really had a problem. Like we didn't weigh the produce our first time. So we know enough Spanish where if they say it, we understand. But like I realized like, wow, she really doesn't know any of these words in English because at first I was confused before my wife heard that she was saying go weigh the produce. I was like, what is she saying? And she like had zero, words of English. And I am surprised like someone in Madrid at a grocery store cashier spoke zero English, but yeah, some more people our age have spoke it, I think. And then like to give you an idea, we're late 20s, early 30s. So I'm actually 35 and my wife is turning 30. But anyways, more people in like our age bracket have spoken English. But then when you're somewhere else and they're a little on the older side than us, then they haven't been speaking much English.
So do you ever plan to move back, or is the plan permanently? I mean, your wife is getting citizenship there in Spain. You're working on that. Are you planning on also getting citizenship?
Yeah, right now I have zero desire to move back to America. Watching the news and what our government's doing, there's zero desire for me or my wife. I could see in 4, 5, 6 years plus, who knows, we'll reconvene after Trump's out of office.
So what's one thing that you would share with people who are planning to move abroad? Anything that you did right or wrong that you think would be applicable to other people giving this a shot?
My advice would be to make sure you 100% want it, because everyone you've watched do this and have like a podcast or a platform like YouTube have probably said to you that it's hard. My advice would be just make sure you have a 100% plan and 100% sure you want to do it. Because if not, it's going to be hard. It's going to be harder than you think.
Yeah, that's definitely tracking with everyone else I talk to and my own experience as well. It's definitely harder than people think. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being on.
No problem. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
So what are you waiting for?
If you're thinking seriously about leaving America, especially if you want to move to New Zealand, check out our sponsor, vbi.nz. That's NZ to us Americans. You can book an appointment with someone who can answer your questions about immigration and help you understand your strengths moving overseas. The link is in the show notes below. Please subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Are you planning to leave America? What are your reasons? And where would you go? See you soon, or as we say in New Zealand, see you out there.